you very much. Now call on Kezia Dugdale. 9 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. It may surprise the Minister to know that Labour have a real willingness to work with the SNP Government on this issue. That's why, as a party, we supported their motion back in February when we debated youth employment for the first time when the Minister was in her new role. I have literally spoken for 15 seconds. Give me a few moments, Mr Fitzpatrick, to move on, please. And I would say to the Minister that we will support her motion today as well. Labour's motion that we put forward simply adds on to the end of hers some serious concerns we have regarding the ability of the Modern Apprenticeship programme to help the 100,000 Scots currently desperate for work. I'll get to the detail of the issue of that in a second, but I want to say something about the tone of this debate. Concerns I've raised over the past couple of days have been shot down as scaremongering from a Labour Party press release. That I was silly, that this was an outrageous attack. The First Minister lost his temper at First Minister's question time today and called it a disreputable campaign and said it was an effrontery for me to dare even raise it. The Cabinet Secretary also lost his temper on the Politics show on Sunday and chose to shout down Isabel Fraser instead of take on the arguments. Viewers were left thinking that he was furious because he'd been found out.
Right, Russell.
Presiding Officer, if I was furious in any way, it was a fury of disappointment that a member of the Labour Party who attended the Youth Summit and I thought would work with others to achieve jobs for young people wanted to take political advantage from young people. That was a disappointment in her. A disappointment in her as a spokesperson, but there is still an opportunity for her to redeem herself and separate herself from the empty vessels on her benches.
Kezia Dugdale.
Presiding Officer, the reality is that those figures didn't just magic themselves into a Labour press release. They came from Skills Development Scotland. They represent a set, clear number of facts. Last year, the Scottish Government delivered 26,427 modern apprenticeships. And of course, we support the ambition to upskill the workforce. But the figures show, unequivocally, that 10,000 of these modern apprenticeships went to folk in work, well established for at least 6 months or more. Yes, Mr Fitzpatrick.
Joe Fitzpatrick.
Dugdale would tell me which of those 10,000 she thinks shouldn't be getting the opportunity of a modern apprenticeship.
Kezia Dugdale.
Presiding Officer, we wouldn't take those opportunities away from young people, and I'll come back to Mr Fitzpatrick's point in a second with an actual suggestion as to how the Government could continue what it is planning to do and also create opportunities for people in work. Last Friday I went to ASDA at Jewel in Edinburgh, where I met with a number of young people who have been working for ASDA for 3 years actually, who had joined the Government's Modern Apprenticeship programme. And I wouldn't for a second take away their opportunity to upskill in the work, to be invested in as employees. They carry themselves with pride and look forward to developing their careers with ASDA. But that is in-work vocational training, not an apprenticeship in the eyes of the public. And that is where the con lies at the heart of this debate. And that is the con that Graham Smith has raised from the STUC in his opinion piece in the Daily Record this week. No, I'm sorry, Mr Gibson, there's a lot to get through here, and he has the joy of listening to me close this debate as well, so if he's speaking then I'll seek to rebut some of his points in that too. Mr Smith, in his opinion piece in the Daily Record, said that one thing the Scottish Government could do is make sure for every apprenticeship which is created for somebody in work, they could create another apprenticeship for somebody who was not in work. That would be a very constructive way for the Government to go forward, and I really look forward to hearing what the Government have to say about the STUC's position on that. Presiding Officer, on the issue of Skills Development Scotland, I want to say, and I don't put this on the record lightly, that I had to drag the facts tooth and nail out of Skills Development Scotland about this issue. Letters went unanswered, emails ignored, calls ignored. Many of my colleagues have had a similar experience dealing with SDS. And I say to the Minister that either Skills Development Scotland don't have the resources they need to answer these queries, or they are wilfully obstructing access. Both are unacceptable, and I strongly urge her to address those points in her closing. Yes, of course.
I'll be brief as I can. I will take seriously any issues any member of this Parliament has with any agency that I have charge over, and I can give her that commitment. But will she have the good grace to acknowledge that this is actually the first year that SDS have captured this data in detail, and that according to our own press release, surely it's good news that 81% of 16 to 19-year-olds have started their modern apprenticeship within 6 months of employment.
Kezia Dugdale.
It's interesting that the Minister says this is the first year that SDS have collected figures in such detail, because I heard the First Minister at lunchtime today refer back to figures from 2006. So I asked Spice where they came from, and do you know where they came from? They came from a survey of people who had been through training apprenticeship programmes. They were not like-for-like figures. And on that 2006 myth, let me say to the Minister, for a start, back in 2006, Labour didn't count Level 2 modern apprenticeships in the form that they existed at the time. That's fact number one. And that is where the significant growth in the number of modern apprenticeships comes from. But here's the important fact, Minister. In 2006, youth unemployment in Scotland was 60,000. It is now 100,000. And the government say, I have a cheek to criticise a programme that is exactly the same as the Labour one. I say to this government, they have a cheek to take the same approach to apprenticeships that Labour did when the economy was booming to the times of crisis like today. The SNP cannot escape the simple fact that they said they were creating 25,000 modern apprenticeships to tackle youth unemployment in this country. The reality is that they are not, and that there are 100,000 Scots without jobs paying the price. And if the Minister insists on harking back to when Labour in power, let me say this to her. According to our own figures, published on the Scottish Government website, Labour spent £60 million in 2006-07, creating 15,869 apprenticeships. The SNP now spend £72 million to create 26,427 apprenticeships. When you work that out per head, the SNP are actually spending £1,000 less per apprentice for the whole of Scotland. In truth, Presiding Officer, this commitment to 25,000 modern apprenticeships is a slogan that works for Alex Salmond, but it is not a policy that is working for Scotland's 100,000 young unemployed people. I said at the start, Presiding Officer, that I would refer back to points that I had made in the original debate. I asked the Minister three things at that time to come back to this chamber and take forward. The first was about long-term youth unemployment. I told her it had doubled in the 6 months since we had last spoken. It has now quadrupled. And I know that Jenny Mara will talk at greater length about that today. I asked her for a specific strategy to address long-term youth unemployment. We are yet to see her actual strategy for any youth employment to be finalised in this chamber. And she has spent all of her money. I also asked her about procurement, and I know that Ian Gray is going to pick up that issue in his contribution to the debate. To end the beginning, Presiding Officer, I repeat my calls for the Scottish Government to simply be straight with people. It's the very least that 100,000 young Scots across Scotland can expect, and I move the amendment in my name.
Very good.